Hey guys, my name is Cicabeot1. This is a top 15, so we're not doing an introduction. 2015 was great, let's go.
Baby girl, you're so damn fine though. I'm trying to know if I can hit it from behind though.
You can't get much more 2015 to start things out with, can ya?
I'm 38, she's fine. Wonder when she'll be mine.
The Fetty Wap experiment completely confused me when it was happening. Honestly, looking back, I'm still not sure I should be completely on board with it, even setting aside the later singles where he went completely off the rails. Trap Queen is fine, I guess, but it doesn't really have that much novelty left now that sing rapping is kinda the norm.
679, on the other hand, has stood up to time a lot better and can play with the best of them.
And I got this soda.
It's a tale as old as time. Rapper is at a club, rapper meets girl, rapper has sex with the girl, presumably. It's not groundbreaking or anything for a club rap song, but the beat's great, and Fetty and his crew have this laid-back attitude that makes them likable in their endeavors. I really like the warped-sounding synths with their simple but satisfying pattern.
Now go say some, don't you niggas play dumb.
Perfect for Fetty's rapped verse and sung chorus, and the sung verses from the two Remy boys. Oddly enough, I think I'd call the Remy boys better singers than Fetty Wap, but the chorus is solid the way it is anyway. It really captures Fetty's appeal, at least for me. Off-kilter, doofy, but lovable, similar to Biz Markie.
So basically, this is a better Just a Friend pastiche than the one Mario made back in 2002. And it's not even a Just a Friend pastiche.
This is a total earworm of a club jam. Not the most special or mind-blowing thing in the world, but probably the most fun and enduring song Fetty Wap's made. Immediately after 2015, the guy started falling off hard with songs like Jimmy Choo and Wake Up, and I hear it hasn't exactly gotten much better since then. But for one shining moment, he and his friends had a winning formula in their hands, although I'm still not sure what this has to do with the number 679.
Speaking of rappers who kind of fell off after 2015, at least according to the general public,
I went to the moped store, said fuck it. The salesman's like, what up? What's your budget?
I do feel bad for Macklemore. He filled a niche among white rappers that I don't think has really been filled since his loss in popularity. Arguably Logic tried, but his ego made him less likable than Mac in the long run. Mac just seems like a nice guy. He'll sometimes have ideas that go completely off the rails, he can be pretty corny, but I never felt anything malicious from him. He's meant well in his serious songs, his goofy songs undeniably have personality, and in a way, Downtown is kind of a swan song for the guy in terms of really good joke songs. A multi-part, epic yet cheesy as hell ode to riding a moped. It's like his 2014 hit White Walls, where he boasted about his Cadillac, but extra in just about every way possible.
and this is the Macklemore I live for.
I'm headed downtown, cruising through the alley, tiptoe.
This song is pure ridiculousness. Probably the most ridiculous thing about it is the featured guest list that I didn't even type out in the segment's credit text. You got Kool Mo D, Grandmaster Caz, and Melly Mel rapping some verses in unison, and their parts have a more gangster feel compared to Macklemore being Macklemore everywhere, and Eric Nally delivers a powerful chorus that feels kinda stitched on compared to the verses, but is still wonderfully bombastic all the same. You can really feel the ambition Ryan Lewis had in composing at least 3 distinct sections. From the horns and pianos of the chorus, the jazzy tone of the guest rapper's verses, and the funk bass of Macklemore's verses with a keyboard riff eerily similar to that of Safety Dance by Men Without Hats. I'm really surprised Ivan Dorashuk doesn't have a writing credit for this.
If the Chainsmokers have to credit the Fray for Closer, it's only fair, right?
My seat is leather, I ride a line, it's pleather, but girl, we can still ride together.
And Mac's sense of humor is still definitely intact here. Highlights include him riding so low his balls scrape the road, describing his girl as having Mariah Carey hair, and there's layers to this, tiramisu. That just makes me smile, even though he missed the opportunity to make a Shrek reference, but he rhymes that with tearing my suit, so that makes it all worth it.
Going 38, Dan, chill the fuck out, mow your damn lawn and sit the hell down.
This encompasses the best aspects of Macklemore that it almost makes it bittersweet that this was his last big hit, especially one of the last before splitting from Ryan Lewis. He's made some good stuff since this song, but rarely has he gotten close to the magic of this banger again. If this is the last big smash from him we get, I just might be okay with that.
This song is a great outlet for happiness. what about a great outlet for anger?
I don't fuck with you. You little stupid ass bitch.
Typically, I censor my strong language in my videos, but this is gonna be an instance where I'm just gonna let it out. Cause fuck it, uncensored was the way this was meant to be listened to. Like CeeLo Green's Fuck You, only instead of getting defensive with humor, Big Sean's getting defensive with anger. And it's just as valid. Maybe even more so, cause CeeLo's reacting to someone he admires, Big Sean's reacting to someone he's getting sick of, and man, that's a feeling I relate to a lot more.
After all, I worked in retail for almost 3 years. I've earned this.
And every day I wake up celebrating shit. Why? Cause I just dodged a bullet from a crazy bitch.
This is definitely a song I hated when I first heard it because I thought I was too good for it, but over time, I realized it's actually fantastic, and man, fuck having overly tight standards. I'm not too good for Dance Ass either, and this is way better than Dance Ass anyway, because under the veneer of pissed off rants and acting as immature as possible, Big Sean's still got plenty of humor and clever punchlines to his bars.
I just bought a crib, 3 stories, that bitch a trilogy.
It's that kind of attitude that makes this more than just 4.5 minutes of a man complaining about his ex. It keeps the song from feeling too overwhelming or bitter. And really, who the fuck could get mad at this?
Maybe parents catching their kids listening to this song, or online groups trying to police music content. Other than that, I'm gonna say no one.
Got a million things on my mind, executive deals online, limited amount of time, chasing these dollar signs.
But Sean does get outshone by his guest star E40. I'm not familiar with this guy outside of this and that one weird club jam he did with T-Pain in 2006, but here he just oozes cool. So poised and confident, always switching up his flow, standing up for incarcerated friends, generally delivering fun bars.
Why you always coming around with bad news? Say you want me to win, but hope I lose.
This is one of my favorite guest rap verses of all time for how well constructed and delivered it is. E40 pulled a renegade with this one. Sorry, Sean.
Oh, and also DJ Mustard. He's good or something.
I got a million trillion things.
I got my DJ Mustard rant out with a different Sean a couple years ago. Maybe that rant was really only valid for 2014 because Mustard kills his beat here. It's still recognizably his, but with more texture and menace. And I guess the vocal samples from Kanye don't hurt either.
I got a new chick that I gotta thank God for. I got a new whip that I gotta thank the lot for.
I kinda wish they didn't take over at the very beginning and toward the end, but whatever. At least he brought his A-game here. A banger of a beat that's just as angry as it needs to be to connect. And on it, Big Sean delivered a career-best performance on a song called I Don't Fuck With You. Honestly, knowing Big Sean, that doesn't really surprise me.
So that was pretty angry, so let's shift over to something not angry. I rate the best transitions.
Darling, I will be loving you till.
This stands out like a sore thumb compared to Sing and Don't, Ed Sheeran's other hits off of X. Those were more rowdy and angry, whereas this is a more stripped-back love ballad that harkens back to his debut, Plus. And generally, it does it better than a lot of Plus, at least from what I remember. I listened to this album in college, and it sorta ran together outside of course, The A-Team, Lego House, and You Need Me, I Don't Need You. In that same sort of vein, I wouldn't blame anyone for believing Thinking Out Loud is boring in comparison to Ed's other singles. I thought so too when I initially heard this, but getting some time away from overplay and learning to love the conceptually similar Perfect helped this click with me.
I wouldn't call this second biggest song of the year worthy, even if I do love it, and I do like Don't and Sing more, but this is still a good one.
Take me into your loving arms.
Here Ed lets it be known how much he's in love with his partner, while also hoping that love will last decades from now. It's a simple sentiment, but charming anyway. It kinda reminds me of the Beatles' When I'm 64, only instead of a jaunty clarinet arrangement, it's with vibrant acoustic guitars and even a slow electric solo later on. I also love his belting on the chorus. It makes this a lot more engaging than many of his peers. These two feel close, and Ed puts in the right amount of emotion to sell his affection. Nothing feels insincere about this, not even the mention of how crowds won't remember his name someday.
And the crowds don't remember my name.
Yeah, this line never really bothered me. It's more of an emphasis on how his partner's affection is all that he feels. Like, no one will remember him, but she will, and that makes him feel alright.
Plus, I mean, I like 7 years, so even if I did consider this a humble brag, I wouldn't really care all that much.
This is where modern balladeer Ed Sheeran was born. Not everyone's cup of tea, I realize, but for me, he has more hits than misses in that field. Bit of a shame that Afterglow failed to catch on over here, but with this, along with some other huge international hits, I doubt he's that worked up over it.
Years ago when I was originally going to make this video, this wasn't even on my radar. However, this next song was originally going to be my number 1. Now, on second thought, I don't think I could have really justified that, but don't worry. I've already got enough on my plate trying to justify this being on the list at all.
No, honey, I'm good. I could have another, but I probably should not.
I remember this being one of the most despised hits of this year. People hated this almost as much as the Meghan Trainor hits from this year, if not more so. Granted, the chipper attitude isn't that far removed from the style Meghan tried in the first couple years of her career, but what separates Honey I'm Good from that is the lack of a sour attitude. Trainor's material usually has this subtext of petulance, like calling out skinny bitches or basically the entire premise of Lips Are Moving and Dear Future Husband. Honey I'm Good is basically Andy Grammer celebrating that his relationship with his partner is strong enough that he can avoid the temptation to cheat.
And that's all I ever saw it as.
Oh, baby, no, baby. You got me all wrong, baby.
I guess if I squint at it, I can kinda see why in concept this song rubbed people the wrong way. Why would you pat yourself on the back for doing the bare minimum in a relationship? But I don't know, to me it never really came off as boastful. It came off as being genuinely elated at being in love and knowing that he can stay faithful. To me, that feels like a celebration worth having. And it's not even spiteful toward the girl who's got eyes on him either. He compliments her appearance, even assures her she'll find someone else. It just won't be him. It's details like this that make this somewhat insignificant concept feel wholesome and worth writing about.
It's also white as hell, but in a good way. Somehow.
It sounds hokey, has some tints of country flavor here and there, that swinging rhythm makes this disgustingly chipper, the organ is like some hip church music, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I do get why people were annoyed with the way this sounded, but it completes the package. I think it sounds wonderful, and it kinda makes me want to dance whenever I hear it.
No, honey, I'm good. I could have another, but I probably should not.
Its corniness hits a sweet spot for me. Not too much to make this unbearably lame, and not too little to make this insincere. Actually, it seems kinda weird that I'm defending the song's need to be corny, but this song definitely made a case for that. For a song like this, about resisting temptations of infidelity, it was the right move. And the fact that it sounds this good is a nice bonus too.
But what if you're sick of being good and you just want to be bad? Well, this next song has you covered.
We're cool for the summer.
In the present day, most of Demi's material sees them grappling with their drug addiction and sexuality, and that's something I can respect even if I don't always love what I hear, though it definitely stands in contrast to the stuff they were making in the mid-10s. Loud, bratty, in-your-face tunes about being angry or in control. I loved the hell out of Confident back in 2016, and it would have made my best list that year if it had made the year-end.
But alas, I was young and foolish. There's more to a song becoming a hit than just making the year-end. Confident absolutely was a hit, and I really should have given it a segment on my video all those years ago.
Tell me what you want, what you like, it's okay.
I guess Cool for the Summer making it here then is sort of a consolation prize. Although with this one, it took some time to really click with me, and even still, I do think Confident is the better song, but I can't deny the visceral thrill this gives me. No rules, kiss who you want, die for people, okay, hopefully not, I'm too young for that.
Kiss one another, die for each other.
At first I thought this was pretty ugly. The beat's so jittery and Demi's seductive tone here isn't something they normally convey, but over time, it started to feel wonderful, because Rockstar Demi is probably my favorite version of Demi, with this as well as Irresistible with Fall Out Boy, Monsters with All Time Low, and the Travis Barker remix of I Love Me, because they've got the pipes for rock and their voice suits it better than some of the gospel they've been making in recent years.
And in 2021, I'm sure they could get hits with full-on rock songs if they really wanted to. At least I can hope.
Got a taste for the cherry, I just need to take a bite.
This is every bit as sexy as it thinks it is. Full-on aggressive without being too forceful, the right amount of seduction, and it's so much fun. Perfect for summer as the name implies, even the quarantine summers, and the summers where I worked retail, and summers that you otherwise just spend most of your time playing video games anyway. It's the perfect escapist track, and one of the best showcases for Demi's talents. I know most of their work now is about flushing out their demons, but sometimes it's just as compelling to confront those demons head-on and almost revel in them.
Speaking of facing your demons, I'm about to face one of my teenage demons right now. Remember when these guys were one of the most hated things on the internet? That was really unfair. They really weren't that bad.
It's interesting to see where the solo careers of One Direction are several years after their split. Harry's had massive success, Niall not nearly as much, but he has had a decent amount of acclaim. Zayn's constantly making stuff and no one really cares. Liam sucks, and I don't know what Louis is even doing right now. But in spite of all that, what effectively became their goodbye song has held up pretty well. This wasn't on their last album as a group, but it was the last single they released with Zayn. And in hindsight, it was pretty clear a full split was going to happen shortly after his departure. This is basically what happened to Fifth Harmony later too.
At least their last hit as a quintet was a sweet one.
Going out tonight changes into something red.
Even as someone who has never been into boy bands, either for their music or for the romance, this brings out the teenage girl in me fully, and I'd probably still be saying that if I were cis. The backing instrumental is this ethereal bliss of strings and cooing. The last song got my blood boiling, this one calms me down.
Heart is beating loud and she doesn't want it to stop.
And it's probably the most touching of the songs these boys recorded, with each of them promising through bad times that the two of you will be alright. Well, 2 times 5, boy band logic and all. Maybe you'll find this distracting if you never really got used to that trope, but they make it work.
And the music video certainly helps with that.
Just how fast the night changes.
This is a pretty self-evidently brilliant video for this song, with scenes of first-person dates with all the members that all end up in tragedy in one way or another. Definitely reflects the message of the song itself, and is pretty humorous to boot. Of course, I usually try not to let a song's music video influence my opinion of a song unless it's, say, This Is America, which was built from the ground up to be aided by the music video. But here, it's more of a showcase of the pure charm this song exudes. It's more mature than your What Makes You Beautifuls or your One Things, and that doesn't reflect badly on those songs in retrospect, but it does show how the group evolved into more than just what the edgy teenage boys of early 2010s internet said they were. You hear that, 17-year-old me? One Direction was good, screw your bandwagon hatred.
Between this and Perfect from their next album, I'd say that this group ended things on a high note. However, with the direction that some of their solo careers are currently going, I honestly wouldn't be opposed to a full-on reunion at some point. Anything's possible. Like me praising The Weeknd after trashing him on my worst list.
I can feel my face when I'm with you.
Tackling the Hills is something that was on my mind for years before I actually went through with it, and now that I've gotten it out of the way, it feels like a huge burden taken off my shoulders. Like, thank God I can praise this man again, because he really is talented, and his stuff has the potential to be really good, and overall I do think he's been a positive influence on the pop landscape.
Although I think I owe this song a lot for really helping me get him.
And I know she'll be the death of me, at least we'll both be numb.
I can appreciate a good dark Weekend song now, but I guess at the time, I needed this to really welcome him into my life. Something a lot closer to pop with the rollicking bass line and Max Martin assisted production. A lot of people compared this to Michael Jackson at the time, and I think the comparison was well earned. For the right reasons, of course.
All the misery was necessary when we're deep in love.
He He can hit those high notes, he can dance while on fire in the music video, the song just sounds so sugary and fun despite the lyrics being about drugs. I mean, I guess sugar is a drug, but I don't think that's what Abel's snorting up his nose. Cocaine, right? Yeah, try some lemon pepper and then get back to me. Even when he goes pop, Abel can't let go of his darker impulses. But those impulses don't clash with how wonderful this sounds. In fact, it kind of enhances it. I'd want being high to feel like this too. Sometimes I feel simple for preferring Abel's pop stuff over his R&B, but when he does it well, I'm not gonna feel bad about it. This still feels as exciting as it was when I first heard it in 2015, and I'm glad it helped launch this guy into superstardom.
Alright, now that we're more than halfway through the list, let's roll through some honorable mentions.
Not as exciting for me as it was when it was new, but still a worthy big #1 single in Adele's discography. Also, I'll never not be impressed with how it managed to get to 35 on the 2015 year end with just 3 weeks in the chart year. A pretty good Taylor Swift song that becomes a great song thanks to the bridge. I just love how Taylor sounds singing like that.
Got the drink, get me going bad to bad. Yeah.
Meek Mill and Drake may have patched things up, but that resulted in going bad. Their beef resulted in this. Again, kinda preferred them as enemies. I wish Alessia Cara was still this kind of artist.
Give me one good reason why I should never make a change.
Uniquely laid back, and George Ezra has a satisfying timbre to his voice. I don't think a lot of people remember this one too well, but they should. This is a bit of a hidden gem from this year.
What do you mean?
Clocks!
Kind of a ridiculous song, even by Maroon 5 standards, but it also kicks ass. And yes, that includes the howling.
She wants to dance like Uma Thurman, bury me till I confess.
I have no idea what persuaded Fall Out Boy to make a surf rock song that samples the Munsters theme, but I'm glad it happened. And this samples Tom's Diner by Suzanne Vega, and yet it's a badass boast with a hard edge that gets me pumped whenever I hear it. This album cycle was a little weird for Fall Out Boy, I'll admit, but the big hits they got out of it were well worth it.
You got me in chains. You got me in chains.
I miss solo Nick Jonas. His brand of R&B really spoke to me, especially when it got dark like some of the choice cuts on Last Year Was Complicated. This was not on that album, but it's still just as good.
Also, I know Nick just released a new solo album not too long ago, but I haven't really been that impressed with what I've heard so far, unfortunately. Alright, let's get back to the list proper with a song that my brother doesn't like, for some reason. It feels like heading into the new decade, the early 2010s trend of random indie bands becoming huge one-hit wonders is getting phased out by a pop-punk resurgence operated primarily by Travis Barker of Blink-182. The times they are a-changin', and they kinda make me feel nostalgic for my college years. Oh, come on, I'm not that old, am I? And I guess Shut Up and Dance doesn't perfectly fit into that era of rock I hold so dear, being more synth-heavy and new wave adjacent than Arctic Monkeys or Cage the Elephant, but it's something I'm still proud of. You can feel proud for something you had no hand in making, right? This had no right to be as big as it got, and yet it did, and everyone I knew loved it. And I guess in retrospect, it represents one last hurrah for the charts before they got into the gloomy, depressing tone of 2016's biggest hits. Just a big, happy song about romance on the dance floor that's probably torn up so many prom nights, like how Cobra Starship did for mine. Both Nicholas Petricka and the girl he's singing about have huge personalities, and it's hard not to let that energy become infectious in nearly any situation you hear this song, even at a small gas station. Yeah, no joke, one of my most vivid memories of hearing this song was while getting a grape soda at a gas station while on a walk. I don't know why I remember that so well, but I do.
Everything just comes together on this song, right down to the synth-like effects on the guitar solo, plus all the wacky effects and video game visuals in the video that make this feel a lot like Scott Pilgrim in a way, if Scott Pilgrim took place in the 80s, I mean, come on, the girl in the video has dyed hair, it's kinda hard for me not to make that comparison. It's a bit of a retro vibe, but never feels like a complete pastiche. It's very much its own thing, and it makes me happy.
If people are only going to remember a couple of songs from this year a decade from now or so, it's probably going to be this and Uptown Funk, which is also on the list.
Uptown Funk feels like it's always been around. I remember hearing the song in late 2014 and thinking that no other song could possibly top it in the next year when my reviews were still in written form only. I sometimes mention when I feel like a song is too good to be a real hit, but this one felt too good to not be a hit. Even my mom knows and likes this song, and she pays no attention to the modern pop scene whatsoever, and it's the song that cemented Bruno Mars's position as a throwback artist, for better or for worse. I'm sure people would say Treasure set him up in that mold, but I never heard that song until well after its peak. This, I would have known even if I didn't follow the charts at the time.
And maybe that bit of overexposure has made this kinda cool on me over the years.
A lot of the appeal for this song for me was that it felt unlike a lot of the other music surrounding it, which isn't a slight against everything else that was starting at the time, but it felt so exciting and fresh to get this kind of Minneapolis sound back on the charts again. It felt fresh and exciting, and it just doesn't anymore. Bruno's continued his career off of mostly throwbacks since this song. Most of them have been really solid, of course, and I'd be pressed to call any of them Uptown Funk retreads, except for maybe 24K Magic the song, but when throwbacks to these idealized eras of music are becoming more and more of a thing, it's not quite as special. Still, I can't deny the authenticity and style Uptown Funk exudes. Catchy as hell horn lines and bass lines, Bruno putting his all into his attitude and high notes, every bit is still as iconic as they were when this song tops the charts at the beginning of 2015. Not bad for a song whose hook is built around an interpolation of Trinidad James's All Gold Everything.
That guy actually had his own remix of this song, if you wanted to know. And it actually fit better than I was expecting.
This is one of the few songs where it's a boast of ego, and yet it feels 100% backed up. It may have lost some of its shock and awe in half a decade, but it hasn't lost a scrap of its spirit. It's going to be remembered for years to come, as it rightfully deserves. Now, if only Mark Ronson could have maintained some of that chart success, because Nothing Breaks Like a Heart with Miley Cyrus in particular deserved so much better than it got.
So back in college, I had a bit of an obsession with trying to transpose certain songs to acoustic guitar, you know, one or two people playing acoustic guitars and one person singing.
I mostly tried to do this with older songs like Morning Glory by Oasis and Violet Hill by Coldplay. It got a little more challenging when I tried to do it with then currently charting hits, but I did occasionally find the right songs to do that with.
And believe it or not, one of those current hits I thought would work really well on acoustic guitar was this one. I mean, I never fully developed it, but it should work, right?
Do you recall not long ago when you would walk on the sidewalk?
Simple chords, a drop you can whistle, a singer. See, you can easily do this with one or two people.
It felt like DJ Snake was going to rule the electronic world in 2015, and then he didn't. Where did he go wrong? Trying to make an album, generally watering down his sound and appeal that brought listeners to him back in 2014 and 2015? It could be anything. But we got some really solid music out of him early on that I'd say it was well worth it. Even Get Low with Dylan Francis, which isn't even eligible for this list, could have been a contender because hot damn, that's a hot drop. But I can live with this one too. At this point, I'm pretty sure it's his biggest hit, as well as the biggest hit for all the other artists involved.
And prepare for me to not remember how to pronounce one of those names correctly. I mean, what the hell is a Lazor anyway?
I'm a little surprised Muir didn't catch on as a featured singer on EDM songs. I don't think she even worked with the Chainsmokers. I mean, she did have Cold Water, but I kind of forgot about that one, even if I did really like it at the time. And Lean On has definitely held up better. The Major Lazer team provide this exotic, Indian-style rhythm that I assume is pretty tasteful, but I have no right to make that call myself. And I think it's maintained more wonder and mysticism than the tropical house craze Cold Water followed, mostly because it didn't get run into the ground. They're simple rhythms, but they get stuck in the head, and they build nicely to a then-standard DJ snake drop that eventually turns into a solo. I feel like this should be more of a standard in this kind of EDM track. I mean, you got the synthesizer right there, might as well have some fun with it, right?
Or maybe this is more common and I just don't pay attention. Or have selective memory.
You be there by my side, standing strong.
Nia fulfills her role as the empty vessel of this track well. Her voice fits the tone beautifully, and she just melts into this beat, even if she is a bit slurry. I used to think her chorus chants were saying "focus, fire gun," because I guess reverb has a funny way of hiding syllables. But that's okay, because lyrics aren't really that important for this kind of song. It's about being able to rely on others, so that's all you really need. A comforting voice singing sweet nothings in your ear.
I guess you could say I've been able to lean on this song over the years. And now here's the part where I acknowledge that that joke was stupid. Next song!
'Cause baby, now we got bad blood. You know it used to be mad love.
1989 is a fascinating album to me. It racked up a ton of hits that were often pretty different from each other. There's something for everyone. But I think more importantly, it was probably the farthest Taylor Swift had drifted away from country at the time, no longer bound to Nashville, making more mature music. Sometimes. Prior to this album, I never really cared about Taylor Swift, but some of the songs on this album definitely caught my attention and made me change my mind.
And of course, one of those songs was Style. Because of course it was.
You got bad dreams, lean, daydream, look in your eyes.
Style is the kind of song that Taylor doesn't do all too often. This big, transcendent synthwave track that hits you like a truck with its chugging rhythms. Looking back, I guess Back to December was also like that, and Lover had some songs like that too, but this might have been where she perfected that kind of sound. It's so comforting and pleasant, reflecting the kind of relationship Taylor wants to have with this guy, but also her fear that it's all going to go wrong somehow.
Come and pick me up, no headlights.
The sound just envelops me whenever I hear it, and it kinda causes me to let my guard down, something Taylor's trying to avoid doing in the song. Compared to Blank Space, where she asserts that she has all the control and plays into every piece of tabloid gossip ever said about her.
She can play the villain just fine, but she can play the anxious girl afraid of losing control just as well, if not better.
We never go out of style. We never go out of style.
And these two songs kinda need each other. The tense, sinister Blank Space that plays up a certain persona, and the more calming Style that feels much more true to her actual self. And both really impressed me when I first heard them, but Style has stuck with me more over the years.
He can't keep his wild eyes on the road.
Pulsating synths, soft, rollicking electric guitars in the background, the bass that erupts in the chorus and turns this into a larger-than-life experience, and Taylor's performance is a career best. Hitting all the right emotions, usually dread. Those soft-spoken bits right before the chorus are also really chilling, and they're paid off with the synth slamming headfirst into the chorus. It's everything I love about synth pop.
And of course, Taylor imagining her partner cheating on her is especially powerful.
With some other girl. Some other girl.
That's the kind of fear it doesn't feel possible to fake. This sounds like real emotion to me, and it is haunting. I wrote off Taylor in my high school years because she didn't speak to me, and because her singles from Red felt vapid and annoying to me, and to be honest, they still kinda do today. But 1989, specifically some of its singles, got my attention for the better. Yeah, there's still Shake It Off and Bad Blood, which are kinda vapid in their own rights, but they don't detract from the beauty of a song like Style, or even Blank Space and Wildest Dreams.
Take me out. Just take me.
And with that, I think it's time that we complete our weekend clean sweep for this year.
'Cause if you want to keep me, you gotta, got to love me harder.
I didn't start watching the charts until 2014, and because of that, this was the very first Weeknd song I heard. And I could call this his big breakthrough, since the following year was when he really started blowing up in the mainstream and getting album bombs. But I'm sure people would feel some kind of way about me saying that. After all, he had a trilogy of mixtapes a few years prior that have reached cult status, plus a studio album prior to Beauty Beyond the Madness that I'm sure is beloved by fans too. This wasn't even the Weeknd's first charting song, but I'm sure there's still some truth to my statement that Love Me Harder gave a huge shot in the arm to his career.
Yeah, this song not a lot of power looking back. I mean, I'm sure that Abel would have blown up without it, but a little connection never hurt anybody.
Don't take the pleasure, take it with the pain.
This is possibly the most intimate song Ariana Grande's ever made, even though her music would continue to double down on sexual themes after this. There's just something comforting about this song's loud, booming synths, and that feels almost contradictory. You wouldn't want to have sex to, I don't know, Skrillex, would you? Or maybe you would, I don't know you. But even though it is big on the heavy synths, it feels oddly appropriate for intimacy, or rather the complications around it. They're tense and oddly beautiful sounding, and both Ari and Abel sound great singing with it. Ari with her sensual cooing, and The Weeknd with his high register.
And they have such great chemistry that it makes complete sense that Ari was chosen for a remix of Save Your Tears to help get that song to #1.
At the time, The Weeknd was best known for being a brooding sexual balladeer, and Ariana Grande was best known, at least to me, for being a child star not too long prior to the song's release. So it says a lot that they could pull off a song where she's the one making him seem small, where he's not fulfilling all her needs, and he sounds genuinely scared on the bridge.
So what do I do if I can't figure it out?
He genuinely loves her, but is afraid that he won't be able to keep her, and it's letting his guard down like this that I feel has made some of his most compelling material. This is a beautiful song that's rarely been topped by either artist since. It is still impressive half a decade later.
But admittedly, it's not quite as impressive as this next song. After all, I think it's impressive that DJ Snake was able to make something like this.
Some people want me to be heads or tails.
Is this song so high because of the Double Agent's best list from way back in the day? Yes. Next question.
You know you like it, but it drives you insane. You know you like it, but it drives you insane.
Okay, obviously I'm not going to let other people dictate what I like and don't like. What use would my videos be otherwise? But I can't deny that him praising this as his favorite song of the year helps this click with me, and that admiration has only gotten stronger over the years. Like Lean On, it's sort of become a zen song for me, which is kind of funny if you know how the original song sounds.
You know you like it, but it drives you insane. You know you like it.
Somebody put this poor bass out of its misery, Jesus.
Yeah, DJ Snake turning this into borderline chill wave music was the right call.
I know full well, I'm not a follower.
Even the original You Know You Like It admittedly had a really nice vocal performance from Aluna Francis. By the way, Aluna George is not a stage name for her, that's the name for a duo with a producer named George Reed. Get it? So all that this song needed to reach its full potential was to get a more fitting beat, and the one DJ Snake gave it is some of his finest work. It's a lot different from his usual stuff. It's more refined, more dark and atmospheric, even the drop is surprisingly muted for him. Still something I think would work well at a rave, but, well, a calming rave, if those even exist.
Yeah, I'd wave some glow sticks for this. Although it was a bit of a short notice for me to get glow sticks for this video, so...
There's no need to be so damn cruel.
For a guy who originally built himself up on making loud, bombastic songs, this shows that DJ Snake had a willingness to experiment with his sound. He still does have the drop, but to make a pre-existing song sound this soothing, it's kind of unexpected. And I know it's not like EDM has never sounded like this before or since, it's just not Snake's style.
Only because you know that you wanna feel the same.
I don't mean for it to come off like most of my love for this song is based off of expectations. It's more that I struggle in coming up with much to say about this otherwise. It's not lyrically deep, it's not sonically groundbreaking, it's just neat. Like with Marge Simpson and Potatoes. It's one of those songs where I like it so much because it makes me happy. It's so catchy that I'll even catch myself drumming along to the occasional snare triplets. Plus the dark atmosphere, the unique sound of Aluna's voice, the way those vocals are mixed into the drop, it's all really satisfying to me.
Its little moments are its biggest strengths. In a way similar to Trampoline, actually.
In fact, these two songs seem to be going for similar atmospheres, and while I do love Trampoline, I think You Know You Like It will stick with me for much longer. After all, it's already stuck with me for this long.
And because I'd feel like I'm making some painful cuts from this year otherwise, let's go through some more rapid-fire honorable mentions.
The heart wants what it wants. How deep is your love? Yo, thinking out loud. Now if we're talking body, the ghost of you, it gets me away. But I got a blank space, baby.
Nobody can drag me down.
Alright, one song left to go. Let's roll.
For such a banner year for music, my number one pick almost feels sacrilegious. Because while it's a song people like, it's from an artist I don't think gets a lot of respect. Their career's pretty much imploded at this point, leaving this as an unintentional swan song, and maybe that's made it hit a lot harder over the past few years.
And so, who made the best song of the best year? None other than Pitbull.
I knew my rent was gonna be late about a week ago. I worked my ass off.
Let's get it now.
In a time where reggaeton and other Spanish-language music has gotten more of a foothold in the American music scene, it's a little strange that Pitbull has sort of been left behind. Or maybe it makes complete sense now that American audiences have more of a taste for the genuine article rather than someone who just kinda sprinkles Spanish influences in his music here and there. Of course, Time of Our Lives does not have any obvious Spanish influences. In fact, it probably has none, but that hardly matters because it's easily the best thing he ever did, at least that I've heard. And despite his reputation to some people, I'm gonna say that's also true for Neo. Yeah, I appreciate the guy and I like some of his stuff, but I don't think he's ever made me as happy as he has here.
Besides, his other hit from this year was She Knows. That just makes this shine all the brighter.
Pitbull was often criticized for his obsession with partying and very little else, making him seem uncreative at best and obnoxious at worst. Maybe that wasn't entirely his fault, maybe it has something to do with oversaturation of party music at the time.
Oh, that's hardly a problem now!
Not every Pitbull song has aged tremendously, especially Give Me Everything, but the stuff of his that's more loose, upbeat, and fun generally has. It's stuff I can't imagine getting too angry at in hindsight. Most of it is pretty vapid and meaningless otherwise, but what do you expect? Except Time of Our Lives is anything but vapid. It really cuts deeper. It's not necessarily the deepest song ever written or even anything close to conscious, but the way the party in this song is framed to be an escape from bad times and financial struggles will ensure that it's always topical and can always relate to someone, which in a way is kind of tragic. And the brilliant thing is that Pitbull doesn't need to deviate from his typical party MO to make this work. Just a few scattered lines like, forget about bills in the first of the month, or this the last $20 that I got, are enough, and he can go about his typical shenanigans with no problem. It doesn't contradict Neo's chorus, and it reinforces the positive attitude that the premise embodies. Have some fun before you're inevitably kicked to the curb, and don't let anyone judge you for that. After all, you've put in the time. Why not choose happiness if it's not going to make much of a difference anyway? and the beat is wonderful to match. Bright and driving, no nonsense. It's the kind of pop rap that seems engineered to make people happy. It makes Neo's already great chorus soar, and Pitbull feel like he's excited to be alive.
But it's the bridge that really makes this song something special to me and something I'll always hold dear.
This for everybody going through tough times. Believe me, been there, done that. But every day above ground is a great day. Remember that.
There can be a phony stigma about inspirational lines like this in music, but this feels genuine to me. It's not that deep, but it's the kind of line that makes you want to keep going. That makes you feel like what you're doing to survive is worth it. The day is still good, because after all, you survived it and can keep going. Not just to party and escape the bad times, but to hopefully get out of those bad times altogether someday.
It's my night, your night, our night. Let's turn it up.
Pitbull has never been a profound artist or lyricist, but here he proved that you don't have to be to make something that cuts deep. I love this song so much. In a way, it may have been unintentionally prophetic for Pitbull, as this was his last top 10 hit, but it was absolutely worth it.
I'm Cicabeot1, hope things improve sooner rather than later, and take care.
It's too hard to sleep. I got the sheets on the floor, nothing on me. And I can't take